Okay, everybody. Hola, bienvenidos. Otra vez, estamos in lesson 4.2. Today we're going to talk about stem changing verbs, and I'll explain to you what that means. I actually referenced it last week when we talked about tener and venir, and sometimes I do these lessons, I forget what we have and haven't covered because so much time for me has gone by. So I apologize if that didn't make sense then, and hopefully it will right now. When we talk about different classes of irregular verbs in Spanish, a stem changing verb is one where one vowel in the stem of the verb changes to a different vowel or to a different combination of vowels. So remember that the stem is a part of the infinitive without the AR, ER, or IR ending. Okay. So on the example below on the white box, you have empezar. The stem is empez, right, with the AR taken off. Now we have that is an ER or an E to an IE stem changing verb. And so in that stem, that last E will be replaced by IE in many of the conjugated forms. So, but just so you understand the concept. So in the stem itself, you take off the AR, ER, or IR, and that last verb in the stem, like in empezar, there are two E's. It's always going to be the last verb in that stem, then gets replaced with, in this case, the IE. So that the conjugated form and the yo form becomes empiezo. If it were a regular verb, it would be empezo. That just is awkward sounding. And so early on in Spanish, they changed that to empiezo. In volver, the second verb, that stem, take off the ER, is VOLV. Now the last verb is the only verb, that O. That O is going to change to UE and becomes vuelve for the new stem in certain conjugations. For example, the yo form, vuelvo. So we're not changing the endings. The endings are going to be consistent with the regular conjugation for an AR, ER, or IR verb. Only that verb in the stem is going to change. So one of the more common ones is this E to IE form. Now, one thing that's going to help you a lot is that the nosotros and the vosotros forms don't change their stems. So for the empezar, you'll see in parentheses there it says E to IE in the white box in the bottom in the blue highlight. So that shows us that E is going to change to IE. In the singular form, so you can see the IE in the yo form, the tú form, the usted, él, and ella form. And on the plural side, you can see it only in the ustedes, ellos, and ellos side. So let's just talk about this pronunciation. Clases repitan. Yo empiezo. Tú empiezas. Usted, él, ella empieza. Nosotros empezamos. Vosotros, vosotras empezáis. And ustedes, ellos, ellas empiezan. Okay, so again, that stem, that E in that stem is changed to IE in the three singular forms and the third person plural form. Now, we call these verbs, we call them boot verbs or boot stem changing verbs. Most of you are from Idaho. The concept of a boot is probably not very foreign to you. So the reason we call it a boot stem changing verb, because we take a picture of a boot, and some people call it shoes. Doesn't really work for me for shoes. Take a picture of a boot, you superimpose the verb tree on top of that, and you have the forms that the stem changes are found within the shape of that boot. Okay, so the whole left side, the bottom right side of the verb tree, what would fit in a boot, in the shape of a boot, are the ones where the stem changes. So empezar, we have IE. In parentheses, mean that last vowel, the E in this case, is going to change to an IE. And only in the conjugations that fit within that boot does that happen. So these are called boot stem changing verbs. Okay. So let's go through a couple of these. Again, we will always distinguish for you either, well, in the book, looks like they're going to give you that the E changes to IE, the O changes to UE. We will at least give you in parentheses what that stem change is to, and you'll come to recognize that there are only really three different options for stem changing in Spanish. And E to IE and O to UE are by far the more common ones. So you'll be able to see what that new vowel that the vowel is going to change to in the stem. So let's look at the O to UE. The more common one for that is the verb volver, which means to return. And that the O, which is the only vowel in the stem, is going to change to UE in the conjugations that form the boot. So all first persons, second person, third person singular, and then third person plural. So clases repitan. Yo vuelvo. Tú vuelves. Usted, él, ella vuelve. Nosotros, nosotras volvemos. Vosotros, vosotras volvéis. Ustedes, ellos, ellas vuelven. Okay? So once again, it's the conjugations in the shape of a boot are the ones where, in this case, the stem is changing from an O to a UE for the verb volver. Some common stem changing verbs. And here are a list of some for E to IE and O to UE. Clases repitan cerrar. Cerrar means to close. The conjugations, yo cierro, tú cierras, usted, él, ella cierra, nosotros cerramos, vosotros cerráis, ustedes, ellos, ellas cierran. Okay, so again, along the boot. Comenzar, it looks like the English word commence, and that's what it means, to begin or to start doing something. Comenzar, if you're going to use it with another infinitive, does require the a to come after it, and so does empezar, which means the same thing, to begin. So you can say, yo comienzo a estudiar a las 6. El muchacho empieza a jugar a fútbol mañana. So it's going to conjugate according to the stem change, but when you use it with another infinitive, it's going to have the a between the form of comenzar and the infinitive. Now, there are other times you can use it without the a. If you're going to say, la clase comienza mañana, okay, you're not using it with the infinitive, you're saying that the class begins tomorrow, so you don't have to have that a in there. Any other times where you would need an a, you would include that, like la clase comienza a las 6. That a las 6, that a is because of the hours, not because of the verb comenzar. So it just requires the a after it, the a after it, when it's used with another infinitive. So think real quick, just in your mind, what would the conjugations of the verb comenzar be? Take what's the root, what's the stem, and which verb will switch to an IE. And it's that last E, right? The commence is going to be the stem, so that E is going to change to IE. Yo comienzo, tú comienzas, usted, él, ella comienza, nosotros comenzamos, vosotros comenzáis, ustedes, ellos, ellas comienzan. Ahí. Empezar, same thing, goes to empiezo. Okay, clases repitan, entender. Entender means to understand. And that stem is going to change to IE. Entiendo, entiendes, entiende, entendemos, entendéis, entienden. Pensar, clases repitan, pensar. Pensar, I alluded to this in a different presentation, makes me think of the pensieve in Harry Potter, which takes out your thoughts. So, pienso, piensas, piensa. Pensamos, pensáis, piensan. Perder, to lose. Pierdo, pierdes, pierda, etc. Preferir, to prefer to do something. Prefiero comer comida mexicana. I prefer to eat Mexican food. Prefiero, prefieres, prefiere, preferimos, preferís, prefieren. So it follows the same conjugations. Querer, to want. You've seen that one already. Yo quiero, tú quieres. Usted, él, ella quiere. Nosotros queremos. Vosotros queréis. Ustedes, ellos, ellas quieren. So that E before the, take out the ER, right? So Q-U-E-R is the stem. That E is going to become an IE in those different conjugations. So notice that E to IE can be for ER or for AR or IR verbs. So there's no specificity there in which verbs can stem change. O to UE, same thing. It can be an ER, an AR, or an IR verb. Almorzar means to have lunch. And you already know, I've seen you guys use in your sentences, almuerzo is the word for lunch. Almuerzo is also the verb for I have lunch or I eat lunch. So that can be, it's a verb and a noun form. So almuerzo, almuerzas, almuerza, almorzamos, almorzáis, almuerzan. Cantar, I'm sorry, contar. Cantar, to sing, is regular. Contar, to count, is stem changing UE. Yo cuento, tú cuentas, usted, ella cuenta, etc. Dormir, to sleep. Duermo, duermes, duerme. Encontrar, to find, to encounter something. Yo encuentro, tú encuentras, usted, él, ella encuentra, nosotros encontramos, etc. Mostrar, to show. Muestro, muestras, muestra. Poder, you've seen this one. Poder is often used with an infinitive as well. Puedo, puedo, puedes, puede, podemos, podéis, and pueden. That O changes to UE. Recordar, to remember. Recuerdo, recuerdas. And volver, which we already saw. Vuelvo, vuelves, etc. So those are very common E to IE and O to UE verbs that you'll be looking at this week in your vocabulary. Okay, one specific U to UE, it's a little bit of an exception, is the verb jugar. And it's actually the only Spanish verb that does U to UE stem changing. Jugar plus a is used when the name of a sport is being placed. So jugamos, that's nosotros form, so it doesn't stem change. Jugamos a los deportes. Yo juego al baloncesto, which is the fancy word for basketball. So it would be a él, right? But now we're using that contraction, al. So these pictures on the bottom are actually from the video lectura with video novela with Marisa. Ella juega al tenis y al golf. Los chicos juegan al fútbol. Okay? So that's a verb jugar, the only one that has a U to UE stem changing, again, along the shape of the boot. Okay, comenzar, empezar requires the preposition a when followed by an infinitive. We talked about that. Comienzan a jugar a las 7. Ana empieza a escribir una postal. And that's just a requirement of the verb, just like asistir a, same thing. Just the verb itself requires it. Pensar, which means to think, is also used with an infinitive when you're thinking, are you thinking about going to the store? Are you planning to? Are you intending to? So you say, yo pienso estudiar mañana. Pienso tomar el examen mañana. I'm planning on it. I'm thinking about it. I'm considering it. It's not the only way the verb is used, but when it's used with an infinitive, it's the connotation that we have in English is to be planning on doing something. Okay, so pensar plus the infinitive. Okay, here we go. Go ahead and number your papers from 1 to 8 twice for cerrar and for dormir. Pause the video and go through and just come up with the conjugations for these verbs. Notice that cerrar is E to IE and dormir is O to UE. Okay, so pause and then come back. We'll look at them. Okay, muy bien, veamos, let's see. Número 1, ya está ahí, ustedes cierran. Número 2, tú cierras. Número 3, nosotras cerramos, right? Not stem changing IE. Mi hermano, third person singular, cierra. Yo cierro. Usted cierra. Los chicos, that's ellos, third person plural, it's in the boot, cierran. Ella cierra, first person singular. Dormir, O to UE. Mi abuela no duerme. Número 2, yo no duermo. Número 3, tú no duermes. Número 4, mis hijos no duermen. That's third person plural. Número 5, usted no duerme. Número 6, nosotros no dormimos. Outside of the boot. Stem stays the O. Número 7, él no duerme. Y número 8, ustedes no duermen. Okay, once again, as always, if you didn't get them right, pause, go back, look, make sure you understand first how to conjugate the verbs. Second, which vowel is changing to the stem and when it does or doesn't. All right, now you're going to complete this dialogue. So same thing, number your papers 1 through 9. This is a dialogue between Pablo and Oscar, and you're going to go through and conjugate the verb in parentheses accordingly. Okay, and so pause, Remember your papers, figure it out, and come back. Ok, muy bien. Pablo, Oscar, voy al centro ahora. Oscar, ¿a qué hora piensas volver? El partido de fútbol empieza a las 2. Pablo, vuelvo a la 1. Quiero ver el partido. Oscar, ¿recuerdas que nuestro equipo es muy bueno? Puede ganar. And if you put on that one, podemos ganar, saying he's including like we can win as part of the team, that's fine too. Pablo, no, pienso que va a perder. It's going to be an infinitive, right? Pienso que, and then va a, so it's going to, the second verb stays in the infinitive. Pienso que va a perder our team. Los jugadores de Guadalajara son salvajes cuando juegan. Okay, as always. If you didn't get it, pause, look back over it. If you have any specific questions, obviously come to talk to me during office hours today. Well, I say today because I'm recording this on a Tuesday. Okay, here's some more stem changing, an exercise, and I have the verb there with what's the stem changes to in parentheses next to it. So 1 through 13, go ahead and write out the correct verb in these sentences and then come back and we'll take a look at it. Ok, aquí vamos. Número 1. Olga no quiere caminar. Número 2. Omar duerme hasta el mediodía los fines de semana. Número 3. Los compañeros de Danilo almuerzan en la cafetería. Número 4. Mirta cierra la puerta. Número 5. Yo pienso viajar a Costa Rica. Número 6. Rita no recuerda la tarea de historia. Número 7. El verbo empezar. ¿Por qué ellos empiezan a comer? Número 8. Julio y Rosa pueden ir a la fiesta del viernes. Número 9. David encuentra el autobús. Número 10. Sofía vuelve a su casa de la escuela. Número 11. Nosotros dormimos en el hotel. Número 7. Tú piensas ir al gimnasio mañana. Y número 13. Yo no puedo ir hasta las 3. Okay? So, again, this encompasses so much. It encompasses you looking at the subject of the sentence, knowing which verb conjugation is the correct one, knowing how to conjugate the verb, knowing how to change the stem, and knowing when to or when not to change the stem. So, a very comprehensive activity. So, muy bien. Hope that went well for you. All right. So, a lot of important things going on here. These stem changing verbs are wonderful. They're going to be very helpful to you as you go through and are increasing your ability to talk to people, to understand what people are saying. Stem changing verbs. All right. Let me know what kind of questions you guys have. Gracias.